Let me tell you something quiet, something strange about silence in the digital age. We live in a world where almost everything is shared. Birthdays, coffee cups, sunsets, tears, even paint polished, filtered and posted. But some people stay invisible. They scroll quietly, observe deeply, and rarely, if ever, post. You might know someone like that. Maybe you are someone like that. And the question always lingers. Why? Why choose to stay unseen when the world is shouting for attention? It's easy to assume they're shy, reserved, maybe even disconnected. But that's not the full story. Beneath that silence, there's a psychology, a quiet rebellion against a culture addicted to noise. For some, silence isn't emptiness. It's power. It's the right to decide what the world doesn't get to know. Because whether we admit it or not, social media has reshaped how we define ourselves. It rewards display. It praises noise. It teaches us to perform rather than exist. But the ones who stay quiet, they see what most people miss. They think before reacting, listen before speaking, and feel before posting. Psychologists have found something about them. People who refrain from posting often score higher in self-restraint, introspection, and emotional independence. They're less swayed by comparison, less addicted to validation. They don't need to prove who they are. They're trying to understand it. And in a world drowning in performances, that's rare. Because let's be honest, most of what we post isn't communication. It's construction, an audition for belonging. Every photo says, "This is who I am." Do you approve? Every caption whispers, "Am I enough?" But when you stop posting, something shifts. You stop living for the lens. You start living for the moment. You stop thinking in captions and start remembering in silence. That's the quiet psychology behind people who don't post. They're not rejecting technology, they're rejecting performance. It's not antisocial. It's self-preserving. A refusal to reduce a life into fragments of proof. Because once you've seen how perception bends under filters, you start craving what can't be posted: silence, imperfection, truth. For many, that choice comes after fatigue. Maybe they once had everything until it stopped feeling real. Every post became pressure to outdo the last one, to decorate happiness, to perform peace. So they quit quietly. No announcement, no explanation, just a slow fade from the feed. But their silence isn't absence, it's care. It's protection. There's a term in psychology, psychological ownership. It's that sense that something belongs deeply to you, a memory, a thought, an experience. And when you post it, that ownership fades a little. It becomes shared property, diluted by perception. So, people who don't post, they guard that ownership. They keep their moments intact, private, whole, not out of sadness, but freedom. Think about it. When was the last time you did something meaningful and didn't you feel the reflex to share it? When was the last time you just lived, without reaching for a camera? That impulse to display isn't natural. It's trained. Years of dopamine and feedback loops teaching us that validation equals worth. So when someone steps away, it looks like rebellion, but it's really recovery. Cooking without photographing, traveling without tagging, feeling without explaining. In that quiet, something reawakens a kind of self-awareness that doesn't need an audience. But not every silence is peace. For some, it's fear. Fear of being misunderstood, ignored, or misread. Social media has created something psychologists call self-presentational pressure, the constant awareness of being watched, even when you're not. And that's exhausting. So they retreat, not because they don't want to connect, but because they want to be seen truly, not superficially. And sometimes, the quietest people online have the loudest minds. They're not absent, they're overflowing. They've simply chosen stillness over spectacle. There's something philosophical about that choice. In a world shouting, "Look at me," choosing invisibility becomes an act of defiance. It says, "I exist beyond your perception," because not everything we experience is meant to be witnessed. Growth, grief, transformation, these things happen privately, in silence. And those who've lived through that know that being unseen is not the same as being insignificant. It's where identity is formed, not performed. Social media was designed to connect us, yet it often leaves us lonelier. When you stop posting, you start noticing who remembers you without updates, who reaches out without reminders. Those quiet connections, they feel heavier, warmer, realer. The people who don't post live there, between solitude and intimacy. They build relationships that don't need proof. They find comfort in the unshared, because to them, peace isn't invisibility. It is in knowing who you are when no one is watching. That's not arrogance, that's calm. Ironically, the people who post the least often have the most to say, but they save it for when you're across the table, not across a screen. Their connection lives in presence, in eyes that meet, in laughter that doesn't need witnesses. They carry worlds within them, observing quietly, processing deeply. They don't need applause for existing. They just need to exist. And maybe their silence isn't emptiness. Maybe it's a mirror, reminding us that not everything meaningful needs to be shared. The longer someone stays away from the feed, the more vivid the world becomes. Colors feel richer. Time slows. Conversations deepen. When you stop performing, you start experiencing. You walk without proof. You breathe without witnesses. You live without commentary. And that's something our screens rarely let us do anymore. There's real psychology beneath it. Every like, every comment releases dopamine, the brain's reward signal. Over time, we begin to crave it, to measure worth through applause. But people who resist that aren't detached, they're disciplined. They've built an internal center of gravity. Their worth isn't outsourced to reaction. Studies even show that long breaks from social media increase emotional stability and life satisfaction. Because once your identity stops being mirrored back at you, it becomes real again. You stop editing life. You start living it in all its messy, beautiful, unfiltered complexity. And maybe that's the quiet rebellion, to stay whole in a world that rewards fragments. Still, silence isn't always serenity. Sometimes it's exhaustion, the kind that comes from endless comparison. Watching everyone's highlights while you're still piecing together your behind the scenes. Eventually, some step away, not from bitterness, but self-preservation. They realize they don't owe the world a performance. They don't owe proof of happiness to be believed. Because somewhere along the way, we confused visibility with value. But real meaning doesn't need an audience. It just needs presence. Some of the most defining moments of your life, your heartbreaks, your recoveries, your quiet victories, will happen unseen. And maybe that's how it should be. Psychologists call it congruence, the alignment between who you are and who you show. But in the age of filters, that alignment bends. Choosing not to post becomes a form of preservation, a way of protecting the truth between your inner and outer world. They don't need everyone to see to believe it's real. They don't need to capture every sunset to remember how it felt. They live fully and quietly. And here's the paradox. Those who live quietly often feel the most. They notice what others overlook, the way light softens on a wall, the pause before someone speaks, the echo of laughter down a hallway. They are present, and presence is the rarest currency in a world obsessed with attention. They're often misunderstood, labeled detached, mysterious, even cold. But look closer. Their silence isn't emptiness, it's depth. It is the calm that comes when you no longer need to be understood by everyone, just a few who truly see you. Not every truth belongs to the crowd. Some parts of you deserve to stay untouched by algorithms and opinions. Because once something becomes public, it stops being purely yours. So maybe some moments are too sacred for that. The next time you meet someone who never posts, don't assume they're hiding. Maybe they're living. Maybe they found peace in the quiet corners of existence, the ones untouched by the blue glow of a screen. Maybe they remembered what we forgot, that being unseen doesn't mean being alone, that being quiet doesn't mean being empty, that sometimes the truest expression of who you are is silence. Because in the end, we're not meant to be performances, we're meant to be people. And the people who don't post, they remind us of that every quiet, unfiltered, beautifully invisible day.